Level 1, the analyst. You are 22 years old. You have a security clearance and a terminal in a room with no windows. The room is called a SCIF, Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility. The name suggests importance. The reality is fluorescent lights, stale recycled air, and a classification banner at the top of every screen you are authorized to look at. You are a 35 Fox, an intelligence analyst. The Army's designation for people who sit in sealed rooms and impose order on the information other people risk their lives to collect. Your first assignment is a target package. Not a person yet. A pattern. A network of phone numbers, vehicle registrations, and grid coordinates in a country you have never visited and will likely never see. You chart the nodes. You draw the lines between them. You brief a major on your findings. He nods once and leaves. The briefing ends. You go back to the terminal. 4 months later, the package disappears from your system without explanation. Someone acted on it somewhere above your clearance level. You are never told what happened, which is not unusual. In this work, not being told things is the default state of existence. That is your introduction to the fact that will define the next 20 years. You produce. Something happens. The chain connecting your work to its outcome is invisible by design, because the design requires that no single person can see the full picture. You tell yourself the chart mattered. You tell yourself it was used correctly. You have no mechanism to verify either. Learning to operate without verification is the first thing this job demands of you. Will not be last thing it asks you to give up. Level 2, the imagery officer. You are 24. You analyze satellite photographs. The technical terminology is overhead imagery. Pictures taken from orbit of people who do not know they are being watched, of facilities within countries whose governments have not consented to being surveilled, of things that someone in Washington decided were important enough to task a satellite to photograph. You learn to read these images the way other people read faces. The angle of a shadow tells you time of day and time of year. A heat signature bleeding through a warehouse roof at 3 in the morning tells you about generators and who is running them and why. The pattern of tire tracks in the dirt around a compound tells you about frequency of activity, about which vehicles arrive at which hours, about direction of approach, and whether the patterns are consistent or deliberately varied. You are assigned a target, a man. You know him by grid coordinate first, then by a photograph attached to a coordinate, then by a pattern of behavior you construct across weeks of observation. You know his schedule better than his family does. You have never been in the same country as this man. You write an assessment and assign it a confidence level, high confidence. 2 weeks later, the imagery shows a crater where the compound used to be. Your report was one link in the chain that produced that crater. You sit with that for a while. Then you write the next assessment. You tell yourself the confidence level was justified. You believed it when you wrote it. On most days, that is enough. Level 3, the HUMINT collector. You are 26 and in country for the first time. A forward operating base in a place that smells like dust and diesel fuel and something chemical that is always burning somewhere beyond the perimeter and that no one ever names or explains. Your mission is to develop human sources, not satellite dishes or intercepted signals or patterns in data. People. Local people who move through the same streets as the targets and who have access to information your systems cannot reach. A market vendor who sees which supplies are being purchased in bulk. A government clerk who processes certain categories of paperwork. A local police officer who attends certain meetings and overhears certain conversations. You approach them over weeks. You learn their routines. You learn their children's names. You sit with them and ask about their problems and listen with the patience of a person who needs something and has been trained to wait without appearing to wait. You pay them. The payments are never quite enough for what you are actually asking them to risk. Your best source is a man in his 40s who has experience working with Americans and knows what the arrangement costs. He gives you accurate intelligence for 7 months. Then he gives you something inaccurate, and you cannot determine if it was a mistake or a deliberate shift. You flag the anomaly up the chain. He is pulled from the network. You request what happened to him. No one tells you. You develop 3 new sources the following month. You do not ask again. The information is the mission. The people are the means to it. Knowing that distinction and continuing to function inside it is what the training did not actually prepare you for. The work prepares you. Level 4, the interrogator. You are 28. You are assigned to a detention facility on a base that does not appear in official deployment rosters. The men in the cells were captured in operations built on intelligence produced by people at your previous level. The system is designed to feed itself. Your role is to continue the cycle and extract the material that makes the next cycle possible. Modern military interrogation is not what most people imagine when they hear the word. There are no raised voices. There are no hands on collars or faces. There are rooms. There is controlled time. There is the deliberate application of psychology to a human being who has been isolated from every anchor their existence previously depended on. You study a detainee for days before you enter the room. His background, his family, his ideological formation, his specific fears, the precise contours of what he needs. You enter and you are calm, and you are the only person he speaks to in a facility, specifically designed to make that contact feel essential. Over days and weeks, you become the center of his experience, and he begins to tell you things he did not intend to tell you, and does not fully understand why he is saying them. Some of what he tells you is acted upon within hours. Reports come back with results. You tell yourself it is necessary work, and there is evidence that it is. There is also a kind of evidence that does not appear in reports and is measured in different units. You learn to keep those two categories in separate compartments and enforce strict separation between them. The job requires that. You maintain it. Level 5, the targeting officer. You are 30. You sit at the place where all intelligence converges. Signals intelligence, imagery, human reporting, open source material. Everything funneled through your function into a single coherent package about a single human being. Where they are. When they are there. With whom. How often the pattern repeats. What the pattern means. And at the end, the thing every package requires. Your assessed confidence level. The targeting cycle has a formal name within the system. Find, fix, track, target, engage, assess. You own the first 4. What happens in the 5th step is not your function. That is what you are told and what you repeat and what you eventually begin to believe, because believing it is what allows you to do the work, and the work needs to be done. And you are very good at the work. You become better every year. The packages accumulate. The battle damage assessments come back and you read them the way a craftsman reviews quality control data, looking for gaps in process, looking for where the intelligence held and where it failed, looking for what to improve. You find ways to improve. You become more accurate. Greater accuracy means greater confidence in what gets authorized. You understand the chain this creates. You do not dwell on it. Dwelling is not a function the job requires. Accuracy is. You deliver accuracy. You move to the next package. Level 6, the Counterintelligence Officer. You are 32. You have spent the last decade learning how adversarial intelligence services think, how they recruit, how they approach a target and build a relationship, and extract what they came for. Now your job is to find where they have already done it, inside your own organization. Counterintelligence is the work that nobody in uniform wants discussed openly because it requires accepting a truth that military culture resists. The people around you, the people you trained with, the people you trusted your life to on deployment, some of them are capable of betrayal. Not as an abstract sentence, but as a concrete operational reality that has happened repeatedly across the history of American military intelligence and will happen again. You review financial records and find numbers that don't resolve against a person's documented income. You study communication patterns and find contacts that appear at the wrong intervals. You examine travel history and find gaps. Small things that accumulate into a picture that cannot be read any other way. You run operations designed to surface a penetration, feeding specifically tailored intelligence to specific people and monitoring where it appears on the other side of the line. When you catch someone, it is someone you know, a person you went through training with, someone whose child you met once at a unit event years ago. The processing is clean. The evidence is organized. The paperwork moves efficiently through the system because The system was designed for this possibility and is not surprised by it. What it feels like is not a variable the system accounts for. The paranoia the work installs in you does not leave when the case closes. It becomes the operating state. You trust no one completely, including your own perceptions, because you have learned that very capable people read situations confidently and are entirely wrong. That is not a flaw in the job. That is the job. The loneliness it installs is a cost that is not listed anywhere in the paperwork. You pay it anyway. Level 7, the defense attaché. You are 35. You are posted to an American embassy in a foreign capital. Your uniform is pressed. Your cover is diplomatic. Your actual role is collection and assessment of military intelligence in a country whose government would object to both activities if anyone said them out loud directly. You attend receptions in marble rooms and make the kind of conversation that reveals almost nothing and registers everything. The foreign military officers across the room are doing identical work. Both sides understand this. No one acknowledges it. You assess every person in the room as a potential source, a potential asset, or a potential threat, and you understand that they are doing the same assessment of you. The host country's intelligence service opened a file on you the day your credentials were presented. They maintain coverage on every American service attaché. You operate knowing you are watched. They operate knowing you know. The receptions are collection operations mounted by both sides, using cocktail parties as the venue and polite conversation as the access methodology. You identify a foreign general who demonstrates interest in American systems and also demonstrates the kind of dissatisfaction with his own institution that usually precedes a decision to share things he should not share. You report the contact accurately. Headquarters assesses the developmental potential. The relationship is authorized to continue. Months pass. You cannot determine with certainty whether you are developing him or whether he is developing you, whether his dissatisfaction is real or performed. That uncertainty is permanent at this level. You operate inside it every day, and you learn to stop waiting for it to resolve. Level 8, the Special Access Programs Officer. You are 38. Your clearances extend above the level that most cleared individuals know exists. You hold special compartmented access, special access programs, and waived programs whose very existence cannot be confirmed to any person not read into the specific compartment, regardless of that person's other clearances or their rank or their need to know for other things. You work on capabilities that do not appear in the intelligence budget that undergoes congressional oversight. Systems that have not been publicly acknowledged and whose acknowledgement would alter how allied governments calculate the value of their relationship with the United States, and how adversarial governments calculate the risk of their current behavior. Operations in countries where no American military presence is officially documented. You sign agreements at read-in that govern what you can say for the remainder of your life to anyone, under any circumstances. The compartmentation is complete enough that you cannot discuss your work with your supervisor unless that supervisor holds identical access. You cannot reference it indirectly in conversation with cleared colleagues who are not read in. A cover story is provided for social and professional contexts, and you use it long enough that it becomes reflexive. The things you carry are not abstract. They are specific, named, dated, documented. You know things about what this country's military and intelligence apparatus is capable of that would change the calculations of every government currently in operation. The weight of carrying that is not something you were told to expect. You were not told to expect anything. You manage it. Level 9, the Theater Intelligence Director. You are 42. You run intelligence for an entire theater of war. Every intelligence discipline, signals, imagery, human, cyber, open source, flows into your directorate and leaves as assessments that brief four-star generals who make decisions that determine the shape of the conflict. When you are right, the operation works and the credit distributes across a dozen names in the after-action report, while yours appears nowhere. When you are wrong, the consequences are traceable back to a specific document with your signature block on it. You develop a particular capacity. The certainty you project in a briefing room is calibrated precisely above the certainty you actually hold, because a theater commander cannot function on probability distributions and hedge language. A commander needs a single sentence. You deliver the sentence with the confidence the sentence requires, and you learn to believe the sentence is warranted because believing it is warranted is what makes the next one possible. After enough years at this level, the distance between what you project and what you hold becomes difficult to locate. The performance and the internal assessment fuse together. You are not certain this is a problem. The theater does not run on the gap between them. It runs on decisions made by people who received clear assessments from you. You provide clear assessments. The theater continues. Level 10, the principal. You are 48. You brief the Secretary of Defense. You brief the National Security Council. You brief the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, occasionally the president. Your assessments inform decisions made by people who command the most capable military force in human history and who cannot act clearly without knowing what you know. You know everything. The active conflicts, the covert operations, the capabilities that exist and those that are denied to exist, the penetrations that have been identified and those that have not yet surfaced. Every piece of military intelligence produced anywhere in the system eventually reaches your level, filtered and synthesized and presented in the documents that shape what the people above you do next. At this level, there is no chain between you and what gets authorized. You are not 4 steps removed from the outcome. You are not 2 steps. You sign the certifications. You provide the assessments that allow specific actions to occur. The distance you maintained at earlier levels, the professional separation between analysis and consequence, does not exist here. You have understood this for years, and you made the decision to accept it. Implicitly, every day you continued to pursue advancement. Each individual decision across 26 years seemed defensible on its own terms and produced logically from the one before it. What they add up to is a thing you identified long ago and chose not to name. You retire. You sign the final set of agreements. You are driven home. The security detail drops you at a house in a residential neighborhood where no one knows who you are or what you spent your life doing. The silence is total. You expected it to feel like relief. You find that it feels like nothing at all, and after a moment you understand why. You were the machine for so long that the absence of function reads as malfunction. The terminal was better at silence than you are. The terminal never needed anything from the silence. Somewhere in a building with no windows, a 22-year-old sits down at a government terminal for the first time. There is a classification banner across the top of the screen. There is a target package waiting in the assigned queue. A major will nod at the briefing and leave without explaining what happens after. The analyst does not know where this leads. They cannot know. The system does not disclose its architecture to the people it is processing. They will work. They will produce. Something will happen somewhere above them. They will not be told what. They will tell themselves it mattered. They will learn, eventually, what that costs. The terminal is patient. It does not run out of students. The darkroom never has.